Hello, MotoAmerica fans. It's time for another episode of Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. You'll laugh, you'll cry, and you may even learn something from this unlikely pair and their special guest. The mic is yours, Paul and Sean.
Hey everybody, this is Paul Carruthers, and this is Off Track, our weekly MotoAmerica podcast. I'm joined today, as always, by Sean Bice, my counterpart, who's across the country in Ohio. I'm here in Southern California, and I'm just up the road from our special guest today, who is Jake Gagne. Anybody who wasn't living under a rock this week heard the news that Gagne will be joining four-time MotoAmerica Superbike champion Cameron Beaubier on the newly named Monster Energy Attack Performance Yamaha team. Obviously, some big news this week with Yamaha's announcement of not only the new team, but also the two riders. And I'm pumped for Jake, as I'm sure everybody is. It's nice to see somebody who I know puts in a lot of work, a lot of effort, and he's a good guy. And he's now being rewarded with what I would imagine has to be his best opportunity that he's had in his career so far. So we're going to talk to Jake here in a second. But first of all, I'm going to pass it off to Bice, who will give us one of his lovely stories to brighten our morning. How are you today, Sean?
I'm doing great. So yeah, big news with Jake. Can't wait to talk to him. But before we talk about that big news, I have to talk about some different big news. So Alexa, play Happy Anniversary by Little River Band.
Here's Happy Anniversary. The Masters 99.
What the?
Happy anniversary, baby. Got you on my mind. Got you on my mind.
Happy anniversary, Paul. This is podcast number 52, and I'm not really good in math, but I think 52 means 52 weeks. It adds up to a year. So happy anniversary. We've done a year of this, and it's time to celebrate with Jake Gagne. Alexa, stop.
You're a certified idiot. And I love it. I would have rather gotten flowers, but I guess that's year 5 or something. But yeah, that's amazing. It's amazing we've done this for a year.
Jake probably doesn't even know who Little River Band is, I bet. Although,
I do.
I'm going to tell you something. Jake knows everything.
Happy anniversary, guys. That's great. I'm happy for you.
Oh,
Thank
thanks
you.
a lot. And we picked you.
You're the third wheel on our anniversary date.
All right. It's a bummer that you guys are so far apart. You can't have a special night or hang out.
I know. There's no hugging and kissing, but
it'd be embarrassing. Believe me, we wouldn't want to do that. I'd be all in tears. My mascara would run. It would be. But anyway, welcome, Jake, to the podcast. Great news for you. We're all so thrilled for you with this deal. You've had some good rides in the past, but I think it's got to be comforting to have this and also kind of be back home. You've kind of been known, or we're known as a Yamaha rider. So great job on your part to get this going, and tell us about how it came about a little bit, if you would.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. I mean, I'm like you say, it's pretty much opportunity I've always kind of wanted and dreamed of, and it's amazing to be back with Yamaha. And I know, like we said, I've had a lot of great races and great years with Yamaha, and so for Keith and Tom and Richard at Attack and everybody to kind of think of me and call me back once Garrett kind of went his way at a World Superbike, I was pumped, man. And for it to all come together, I'm really thankful, and I'm ready to get to work and start riding that thing.
Yeah, who actually called you? Was it Keith?
Yeah, and so when I left Barber, when we left the race and the banquet and all that, I hadn't even talked to Keith, regarding this year, next year at all. But yeah, I talked to him a little bit later. I think it was while kind of Garrett was in France working on his deal over there. So yeah, it came about kind of out of nowhere, and then it happened quick. And now, luckily, kind of this week we got it out there, so it's been pretty awesome.
One of the things, Jake, Yamaha has this wall of fame, and I'm pretty sure, you're on the wall. I believe they did a thing with you when you won championships for them, right?
Yeah. Every year they do that, the Wall of Champions kind of event. So yeah, I had a couple. They gave us some too. So they're actually at my parents' house, but a couple of those cool plaques. They do that for. I was actually just walking through Yamaha yesterday with Keith, and we walked through that whole hall where they have all those things, and there's like guys from even the '70s and the '80s. They only got plaques, so it's pretty awesome. They get a lot of history in
Yeah.
there.
And Jay, just so you guys know, I'm sure most of you do. The Keith we're talking about is Keith McCarty, race division manager for Yamaha. Has been with them for a long time. Started with them in '78, so he's been around a long time. Handled their motocross, then moved over and handled both, and still very involved in the road racing as well. And just that part of it, the fact that it's something that Keith talked about, and we saw from the press release that Jake, you have a 2-year contract, and it is with Yamaha. So I guess for these people that think Yamaha is going away, they're not going away at all. I mean, Cameron signed a 2-year contract with Yamaha. You did too, and they're now working with Attack Performance. That's how it's going, right? That's how it's set up.
Right. Yeah. It just did, like you say, a kind of a joining of forces with Yamaha USA, and then and Richard with Attack Performance and what he's been doing, and so kind of what they've both been doing over the year. There's obviously a lot of knowledge in both of those guys, both those parties, and so it's kind of just bringing that together and putting it into one program to kind of keep going forward. I think is that's really the goal.
Yep.
Now you have experience, obviously, on the R1. You won our Superstock championship in 2015, which was our first year. It's a pretty, I don't want to say easy bike to ride, but I mean, it's a pretty nice package to just jump on and be able to go pretty quick, right?
Yeah, that's what I've always felt like. I mean, I remember the first time I rode the thing, just a stock bike, how friendly those things are, and how, I mean, they've always felt really comfortable to me, especially, I mean, over the years, having a couple years on R6s, and then that's when I kind of made that move to the R1 for 2 years, and then I've always loved the bikes. It's in a couple of weeks before, a couple more weeks we get to ride. I get to ride the thing for the first time, so I'm itching to just finally get out there and see what that thing feels like,
I think from yesterday, Attack Performance put out a post, and I could see it was JD Beach's old bike next to, I think it was Cameron's bike. And from what I understand, and Jake, I don't know if they've told you this, but it looks like when you guys test, you're maybe going to test the two bikes side by side and see what components might go back and forth or whatever. Obviously, Richard's bike has some differences on it in terms of its own. He's got his own proprietary swing arm, and he's got a fuel tank that's got a different fuel pickup down at the bottom on the right hand side. So he's got some highly engineered components on that. Do you understand that to be correct, that they're going to kind of compare both bikes a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. And like you say, when I was in there at Attack yesterday, seeing Richard, we kind of he's explaining a lot more the kind of the little differences between the way he's kind of went with the Attack bike and then the way Yamaha and the Monster Energy team has went, so yeah, like you said, combining those two things, and I think we'll have an opportunity to see what we like to kind of make the best bike out of the two, keep moving forward from there. So yeah, I think for me, I mean, riding the bike the first time in a couple of weeks, I'll probably just try to get as many laps on it as I can, obviously, and I'm sure Cam will probably start getting to work on that stuff pretty cool. And so yeah, it'll be cool to get there with the team and ride around with Cam some, and it's gonna be awesome being his teammate this year. So yeah, we're gonna have a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Jake, when you show up to ride a bike like that for the first time, I mean, I'm pretty sure you probably don't have notes in your phone, like where you want the handlebars and stuff like that, or is it just you just sit on it and go by feel?
Yeah, you kind of just go by feel. I mean, even yesterday, I was sitting on some of the bikes, and like we kind of know, you just sit on it and you kind of know what kind of seat you want, and even the gas tank you want, and where you want to put the handlebars and all that basic stuff, and then you kind of hop on and ride and go from there. Really,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. A few weeks ago, Jake, I had talked a little bit with Steve Scheibe, and I want to talk about him a little bit. I know you had a really good relationship. He really enjoyed having you as a rider, and you did some great work for them this year, despite being hampered by the broken leg that is mostly probably getting close to being recovered by now. But you had some good results towards the end of the year. Talk to us a little bit about Scheibe Racing and about working with Steve.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome working with Steve this whole year, and yeah, I mean, even with our deal, that kind of come together a little bit last minute earlier in the year. So I didn't really know Steve much at all. I'd seen the team around and I'd said hi, but I hadn't really got to know him. And so working with him all this year and working with the guys he has on the team, and we had a lot of fun, and we got to make a lot of progress, a lot of different things with the bike, and so we really did have a really good atmosphere and a good program going, and we were really making really steady progress. So that's always a good time. And yeah, like I said, even leaving Barber, that was kind of the plan to keep rolling with the BMW program. And then, obviously things changed a little bit. And I was bummed to tell Steve about the kind of the program initially, but I know he's happy for me, and I know he's going to have a good program continued going forward.
What was the thing about that bike? We've heard it's got a lot of horsepower. Handling it is still in development, or is power. What do you think the best attribute of that bike? And I'm talking not necessarily about just in general the S1000RR, because they have a new bike this year, and it's questionable whether Steve's going to use it or not yet, just because he's been so far down the road with the development on the previous iteration that you rode. That bike, what would you say is its strength?
For sure, like you say, the engine is strong in that thing, and that's one of the initial things you notice right away. That was one of the fastest thing I've ever really ridden. So having that motor and that type of power and torque everywhere, and it actually became initially earlier in the year. Obviously I was going through injuries and I was struggling just riding the thing in general. But once we got myself comfortable, it really was a friendly bike to ride, and you just kind of had to ride it a little bit differently than the R1s, for instance, and kind of use the power to your advantage and kind of slow it down a little bit more in the middle of the turn and kind of ride it just a little bit differently. But once we got it working in those last couple of races, it really was a pretty friendly bike to ride. And obviously having the power there all the time was good. And but just a little different than everything out there is a little different. But they all end up going pretty dang fast and pretty close together, so.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing how it works that way, huh?
Yeah, it really is. It is.
Like, I thought by the end of the year, it's like, it was pretty cool because there were a bunch of manufacturers up there and it was running pretty close. And it's just funny how everybody, once they get their act together, everybody kind of falls into place.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Jake, how are you now with your leg, and kind of review what happened, and what kind of took so long? And I don't mean to say took so long. Obviously, a broken bone is a lot to deal with, but your particular situation, just so fans sort of understand what you were dealing with this year.
Yeah. Well, so it was the last day of the year that I broke my leg on a dirt bike. Obviously, I didn't even crash. It went down and cased a jump and just kind of jammed it in the ground really good. And then I ended up having plates. I broke the tib and the fib at the very bottom, and I forget what it's called, like a pillar or pylon fracture or something. But it was just a really bad spot for a bunch of braid, and it was broken a couple spots. So I got some plates and screws in there, and so now there's a ton of metal in there. But it just the healing process took a long time. I was completely non-weight bearing for 3 months, so into March or April really, and so that just took a long time. But it's really not. It's been getting a lot better, especially like we were saying, those last couple rounds of the year. And so I don't, I'm not thinking about it really anymore. So.
Yeah, thanks for reminding him, Sean.
Yeah, I always do this. I always talk to these riders and want to know how they're doing, and I don't like to remind them about this, but I'm thinking at least off season, maybe it's okay a little bit.
Yeah.
Have you, and you don't have to reveal a lot of this if you don't want, Jake, but where do you? I know at one point you were checking on the progress of it. Have you had it checked lately? And is it pretty close to being done? And I think you were even planning to get some of that hardware taken out. Can you tell us about that prognosis at all? Unless you don't want to, let us know.
No, yeah. I mean, there's still the healed, all the bones now at this point are well healed. And so now the only thing that gives me some issues is just having the plates and the screws in there where they are. But they, like I say, they keep getting better and better. And eventually I think the plan will be to get the plates and screws out, but it won't be this year. If anything, maybe later next year. Cause they want them in there at least for a year anyway, and it hasn't even been a year. And so it'll be a little while, but like I said, now I'm at the point where I'm not thinking about it, and it's still getting better all the time. Like as I get range of motion back and everything. So yeah. Okay. I'm not worried about it.
Okay, we're past that. Thanks for talking about that a little bit. So I want to talk a little bit about yesterday. We had talked to you somewhat and found out that you're kind of already into the game in terms of this coming year, and you were tell us about some of the things you were doing yesterday.
Yeah, oh yeah, because I called you. You called me. We were supposed to do this interview yesterday. And then,
right.
Yeah, well, I should have just ran into where. Well, Paul, you're in like Costa Mesa, right?
Yeah, you drove right by me
I
and
know.
totally ignored me. We could have gone to lunch. We could have done a bunch of stuff, but you blew me off.
Blame it on Hayes. I was in a hurry to drop his 450 off at his house and get my 450 back too.
That makes
But
sense.
yeah, well, I guess I called when I talked to you. I was at Alpine Stars picking up some gear and seeing Rick up there. And then I went to stop by Richard Zamboli's to see Attack. I'd never been there to his place to Attack Performance. So I got to check out his shop, check out the bikes, like I said, and see the kind of difference and talk to those guys. And then see Keith and Tom and everybody over at Yamaha and check out the program there. It was always cool. And then I got to pick up a new 450 too. So that was always nice. And then, so yeah, we're just kind of getting ready to, I'm just kind of getting ready to go, and I'm going to start riding. I'm actually supposed to go up to Glen Helen later today and meet some guys from Bell and do some riding. And just, yeah, like you say, get it going for next year, get the party started.
So you're back doing moto. You'll be training on that bike for sure.
Yeah.
When you told us you were picking up the bike for Josh Hayes too, I laughed. I gave him a call and I knew he already knew you were doing it, but I was like, hey, just so you know, your 450's on the way. And we talked a little bit. And I was asking him, he had a very successful year this year working with, Cam Peterson and obviously Garrett and Bobby Fong. I mean, he's got 2 championship riders there and also Richie Escalante. And I asked him, I said, you going to do a little something with Jake? And he said, well, it's more up to Jake. So, is that something you might do, being that you're kind of down in his area a little bit?
Yeah, I think for sure. I mean, I was talking to Josh for a while yesterday actually about that. So yeah, I'm sure, like we say, Josh is just a wealth of experience, and the guy, I've known Josh for a long, long time. I've always really appreciated what he's done and his experience and just the guy that he is. And so yeah, my plan is to hopefully have Josh working with me, and he has a really good crew of guys that he's working with the J Force program, and so I'd like to have him there, kind of, obviously he's been on that R1 a lot, he's been with that team a lot, he's been on all those tracks a lot, so just to have a little bit of Hayes whispering in your ear every once in a while for some knowledge is always nice. So I'm sure we'll work that program out.
Do you know yet, Jake, who your crew is going to be? I mean, I know there's some of the guys that I've heard, possibly Mike Canfield and Glenn Grenfell and Vaughn. Do you know yet if you're going to work with any of those guys, or how that's going to be set up?
I think that we'll be with those guys for sure. And I think I mean, obviously I'm not 100% for certain on everything, but that's what it's looking like. I hope that seems like a pretty good program.
Yeah, and there's a lot of continuity there. Obviously, those guys, for people that might not know, Glenn was Garrett's crew chief last year. Mike worked with Garrett on Mike Canfield, and then Lee Vaughn worked with Cameron. Now, I know that team's going to change a little bit because Rick Hobbs, the longtime crew chief, has retired. So there's a little bit of change there, but there's a lot of continuity, again, pointing to the fact that it's the Yamaha factory, and some of these guys that had worked with them are going to be working with you too. So that's good for that that feels good.
Yeah, definitely. That is cool. And obviously how that whole team finished the year. I mean, obviously over the whole year, and especially how they finished the year was really impressive with Cam and Garrett. And yeah, I'm pumped for Garrett, man, too. I wanted to bring that up. That's gonna be awesome for Garrett, and I'm sure we're all really looking forward to seeing him get over there and do his thing. And I think he's obviously we all know he's really, really motivated. He really wants to be there, and I think it's going to work out really well for him. So
yeah, I think that's going to be a good deal. As far as you and your new teammate here goes, I mean, you obviously have a long relationship with Cameron. I think it seems like a pretty good pairing. I can imagine the rider portion of the truck would be a pretty chill place to hang out with you two guys. So that's got to be a comfortable situation to be going into for you, right?
Yeah, I'm definitely really pumped about it. And yeah, like you said, I've known Cam for a long time. I've raced with him a lot over the years. I've hung out with him a lot over the years, and yeah, we get along really good, and I think we became pretty good friends. And so I think, yeah, it'll be a great atmosphere and a great team environment to kind of keep pushing us both forward, push those Yamahas forward, and hopefully, yeah, we can do us both good and have a great time doing it, and have some great battles along the way and put on a good show.
And you can also remind him that you ended his perfect season that year in Daytona Sport Bike.
Yeah,
so like if he gets a little mouthy or a little chippy up there in the front of the truck, you can kind of bring that up.
I hadn't thought about. I hadn't even thought about that at all, really, until you guys posted something about that recently.
Yeah.
Because I saw it somewhere, and that was fun. I'll have to bring that up.
Yeah, I would bring that up day one.
Jake, I'll never forget that. Do you now that we talked about it, tell me if I'm right in this. I think it was at Road America, and I think it was Canada Corner. You passed him in that corner, and that's where you won that race, wasn't it?
Well, we went back and forth a little bit throughout the race, and then he ended up running off, like with a couple laps to go. So he kind of handed it to me there at the end. But we had a pretty killer battle, like for a couple laps going back and forth, and then I think he just made that tiny mistake, so I kind of got in there and got the W.
One thing I want to ask you about with regard to Richard. Now, I think of Steve Scheibe and Richard to be somewhat similar in that they both got these engineering backgrounds and they have giant brains. And, Steve's always thinking, always looking at the bike, always looking at other people's bikes and kind of seeing what he can do. And Richard, I think even more so, because he's involved a lot in fabricating his own parts and he's got his own company that he produces parts for, and they're highly engineered stuff. So you worked well with Steve, and like I said, Steve's got that analytical mind. Do you think that it's gonna? I assume the relationship you've kind of learned a little bit how to deal with that. What was it like with Steve, and what do you anticipate in dealing with Richard? I mean, there's some unknowns there, but obviously he's worked with Heron, he worked with Josh or with JD Beach as well. So what do you think about that side of it?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be awesome, with Richard, and I haven't known him all that well, but I mean, I got to hang out with him and talk with him a while yesterday, and yeah, I'm not worried. I think it's gonna be a really good atmosphere all the way around, and yeah, even like you say with Steve, working with him, yeah, I guess in ways maybe similar to Richard. I know they're both really engineer guys and really clever, really smart, and but it was really awesome working with Steve a lot this year and being able to listen to him think and talk about some of the things that he thinks about on his side of the fence. And because that's kind of what it takes, I guess. It does take a little bit of everything to put a bike together, make it go fast and run that well. And so I got to learn a lot about motorcycles and working with Steve a lot this year about setting up a bike and all that stuff that it takes to get those super bikes running well.
Let's change the subject a little bit. I kind of started surfing again, and I need to buy a wetsuit.
Yeah.
Do you? I went to the surf shop the other day.
One or something?
No. Well, it wouldn't fit me because you're too skinny and too tall. But I went to the surf shop the other day, and I'm like, okay, I had no idea that there were 400,000 different wetsuits.
It's crazy, huh?
What do you recommend?
I haven't even bought a wetsuit in years because I haven't needed to buy one. But speaking of need, the ones that I have and like me, even my buddies have had over the last couple of years are called they're called Need Essential. It's like, it's just called Need Essential, and they make wetsuits, but they're super cheap because they come straight from the factory, and they're not logo. They have no logos or anything on them. So they're like, it drives the price way down. So, and they're really good wetsuits.
Well, that's even better with no logos.
And you only need like a 2 mil or a 3.2 or whatever.
All right. So that's 3 in the body, 2 in the arms.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. See, I learned something today, Sean.
Just text me. Those are good wetsuits, though. They're really cheap. So.
All right. Yeah, I'll text you, and you can send me the info on those, and because I'm fully committed to going back to cold water.
Heck yeah! It's not even cold. It's not even cold anymore.
Well, yeah, it will be.
Yeah. Okay.
Have you surfed lately, Jake?
A little bit, yeah. Well, I actually just got back like 2 nights ago. I was on the East Coast, doing super camps and then hanging out with my family. But so I was when I was home, but I'll be surfing some this week. And I'm gonna bug Paul. We're gonna get out.
Hey, listen, if you guys are gonna go surfing together, you really need to get Tony Elias to join you. He's fully in on surfing now, isn't he, Paul?
Yeah, I can tell he's just got that real passion for it. I'm sure, like, he's different from Jake and I because we both learned when we were kids. And I remember like being dropped off at the beach at, 6 or 7 in the morning by somebody's mom, probably 4 of us with our surfboards on the top of the station wagon roof tied on there with rope. And we'd be there the entire day. And then somebody'd pick us up and drive us home, somebody else's parents. But I think Tony's kind of in that excitement period too, where he just can't get enough. And Jake would know that feeling. But yeah, it would be kind of fun. He's it's funny. He's got some good surfing stories. I don't know if Jake's heard him or not, but I mean, he said like the scariest times of his life, which think about, this guy's raced like MotoGP, Superbike racing, and the scariest he's ever been is in surfing. Like he's got one story where he actually got stuck in the pier. The waves are really big. Wow. He's stuck in the pier and he was actually holding on to one of the pillars and like man. the barnacles and stuff were actually making his arms bleed because he was squeezing so tight. But he's fully committed. But it'd be pretty fun to have him join us. Just I'm sure we would just laugh our ass off.
But like cool. I said, like every weekend I kind of talk to him. I run into him like, man, let's go surfing, and then we haven't actually pulled it off yet. So we'll have to all three of us have to get together and the next couple of weeks and get out there.
Yeah, I think it'll take me to organize it, but I'll definitely.
You just need to keep bugging us. You just gotta stay on us both. We'll get like a group chat going.
No, I'm just gonna say, look, we're going here. We're all meeting here, and then we're doing it. The perfect. I mean, we could meet at somewhere like the San Clemente Pier.
Yeah,
you could come your way, and you could come my way, and I'm good for me. I'd have a 5-minute drive.
And make sure you bring Doug, our audio and video engineer guy, and have him record it. We got to get that thing on Instagram.
Yeah, it'd be pretty funny.
Yeah, that'd be a moment and a half for sure. Hey, want to change the subject for a minute, Jake? There's one other thing I want to talk to you about. It's I don't think it's a sensitive subject, but I've seen from the past. I've seen it happen with Josh Herrin. I saw it happen with Cameron. And I think it's something you had to do this year too. Oh, and JD Beach had this happen too. So you guys were all at one time Red Bull riders, and you have been with Red Bull for a really long time. Well, obviously Monster Energy is the title sponsor of the team you're on. So there's a conflict there. I know for a fact that Cameron had to give it up. Herrin was one of the first ones I remember with Yamaha that had to do it, and JD did too. And you guys were really associated with Red Bull completely. But is that true that you had to kind of let that one go so that you could, because of Monster Energy?
Yeah, and even this year I didn't have Red Bull with me anymore, but up until then, I mean, from 2008, the Red Bull Rookies Cup in 2008 until really last year, which is 2018, I guess 10 solid years with Red Bull. That's a pretty dang good run, and I owe a lot to all those guys, to Jeremy at Red Bull, and especially because being the Red Bull Rookies Cup and that program, how that kind of came about, I would have never even touched a road race bike if it wasn't for that program. And my year in the Red Bull Rookies Cup here in the States, and then a couple of years in Europe, and then kind of the opportunities that came from that. So yeah, I mean, like you say, like kind of, I guess you see it in sports and life all the time. It's sometimes you gotta go a different way, and we've seen that with Cam and JD, and that's just kind of the way that racing works. I know we're all really appreciative for what our other past supporters and sponsors have done, but sometimes that's just the way it goes. But like I said, without Red Bull in the beginning, man, I wouldn't have even touched a road race bike ever. So, I owe a lot to those guys. But
your relationship with Red Bull, though, started when you did the Rookies Cup.
Right. I mean, even in Rookies Cup, we weren't technically Red Bull athletes, but Red Bull was the Red Bull Rookies Cup. They were putting the whole program together, and the amount of money that they put together to spend on all of us kids throughout all those years, and that's a big commitment to make. So it was cool for that to kind of pay off and flourish, and like I say, kind of present some opportunities that I maybe not would have had elsewhere doing my motocross thing here, which was kind of my whole life until that point.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. This year we finally had another kid actually qualify for that. I mean, we've sent some kids in the past, but Rocco Landers just had a successful tryout, and he's going to be doing Red Bull Rookies for next year. So it's kind of a cool thing for MotoAmerica to have a kid over there that we can keep an eye on, and maybe he can watch him progress.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome. I think we'll all be pumped to go see what Rocco can do over there. That's going to be cool. I'm sure he's stoked. So. Yeah, I definitely hope he can have a good year, and I'm sure we'll all be watching. So
people probably don't realize how, I mean, that's not an easy thing for a 14, 15-year-old kid to just pick up and go to Europe and do something like that. I mean, But I mean, I think he's a good kid to do it. I mean, he's taught himself some Spanish and et cetera, and he really wants to do it. But people just don't realize, like, man, you're a young kid thrown into a big pack over there.
Yeah, it really is when you step back and look at it. You look at it, even like a program like the Rookies Cup. I guess, but been being in Rocco's position or being a kid, and like we've all kind of been there in some way, and it's you kind of just look past all that other crazy stuff that's going on, and the whole all it takes to get together. I'm sure Rocco, all he thinks is getting on that motorcycle and going as fast as he can, and as long as he focuses on that and not all the other bull crap that can go down over there, and enjoy his experience, enjoy the travel, and just ride his butt off. That's all you can really focus on.
Recently, Jake, I don't know if you saw this, but so Ben Spies did a thing with Casey Stoner where they came over and rode it. I think it was Willow Springs. They rode R1Ms for Alpine Stars, and being you're an Alpine Stars rider, I don't know if you were there, but you have a relationship or know Casey Stoner from when you did Red Bull Rookies Cup or with Chaz Davies and those guys. Isn't that correct that you had some involvement with Casey at one point?
No, I didn't really know Casey at all. But JD,
Okay.
It was JD and Cam Beaubier and JD went. I know they spent a lot of time with him, like when they were in Rookies Cup and when they're in Europe, and Cam was doing World Championship, and so I know those guys are good buddies with Casey. I don't think I've ever actually met Casey though.
Okay, but it was Chaz that you were friends with, and it carried on into when you were in World Superbike with Honda, correct?
Yeah. Like I've known Chaz since he was kind of doing. That was in DM. Those, I think when he was on that Aprilia, that would have been like 08 or something. He was on that Aprilia,
right,
in the 600 class, whatever that thing was. So that's what I remember meeting him back then.
Yeah, he raced with Celtic Racing, Gary Gilson in there for a while.
Yeah.
And it's cool that you had that relationship when we're friends with a lot of those guys. I assume that Garrett's going to get to know some of those guys that you knew, like Laverty and some of those guys too, right? I mean, the English-speaking guys sort of hang out a little bit together. Isn't that right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's for sure. Like we say, I know all those English-speaking guys are really cool. And, Chaz and Leon and Eugene and Johnny and all those guys are really cool. So I'm sure he'll get along well with those guys. And I mean, really everybody over there, even in my experience, I think most people's experience, it still is a pretty friendly, it's a pretty cool paddock. All the riders are, I mean, at least in my experience, everybody I could have no problem talking to them. All those guys that we're out there racing against, they're all friendly and they're all there to do their job, but still, good guys. And so it's always, I think I know he'll have a good experience over there. He's going to have a good time.
Good.
All right, Sean, you got anything else, or we can let him go? He's got to head north to go to Glen Helen.
Yeah, that's right. Be careful, please. Be careful up there, Jake. Whatever you do.
I'm just supposed to go out there and for some new Bell helmets. We're just doing a little photo shoot for some the new, I don't know, colorways or something like that. So I'm just gonna. We're supposed to cruise around and look good, I think is the plan.
If I was Keith McCarty, I wouldn't have given you anything more than like a TTR 150.
No, I'm responsible, man. Especially now.
I know you are.
You learn your lessons over the hard ways too, especially the hard one.
It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't take much to make you realize that. Caution comes first. All right. Well, let's let you go. Yeah, there's a time and a place, and this isn't it.
Yeah, okay.
All right, you guys, thank you very much for joining us today, Jake, and congrats on the new ride. It's gonna be fun to watch. We have a lot of confidence in your abilities to make this thing work, and I think it'll be a pretty cool team with you and Cameron, and it'll be fun to see the results, and you can start beating him a little bit and get under his skin a little bit, and it'll be kind of fun, and obviously you'll have to deal with Tony and some other guys as well. So the whole thing should be cool, and we're kind of excited for this next season. But thanks, Sean, for joining in again, and thanks for reminding me about the anniversary. And hopefully there's chocolate or something on my desk when I get back over there. But anyway, you guys, and also a big thanks to the listeners for sticking with us for a year. I can't believe.
Wow.
Can't believe we've been doing it this long. I know we haven't been fired. We haven't been fined by any government organization. Well,
the FCC, maybe, I don't know.
All it takes is one person in the group to think you suck and you're gone.
Yeah. Well, thanks you guys for having me on again, and happy anniversary. And thank you again to Yamaha and Attack Performance and everybody for kind of giving me this opportunity. It's gonna be really cool. And Bell helmets and Alpine Stars and everybody in my corner, and I've received a lot of cool messages and support and all that. So thank you, everybody, and we're looking forward to getting the racing going.
Great.
All right, guys, you take
Okay,
care.
All right.
Bye.
Be
Later.
safe. Bye.